remind you that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
And welcome to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on a cold, not snowy day here in Maryville, Missouri.
It's now just muddy and disgusting out.
It's going to snow again. So.
Yeah, it's going to snow again. It's supposed to rain here a little bit.
It waited an extra day for us.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm Kramer Sanson along with Jacob Blair. Got Andrew Botwinick. And finally, we bring in Andrew Wegley.
It's about time.
How you doing today and finally coming in on WSK?
I'm doing great. You know, I thought I was going to be here last week. Probably should have been here 2 weeks ago. But, you know, here we are, better late than never, making my semester debut on the best radio show on earth, in my opinion.
I do enjoy you saying this is the best radio show on earth.
You made your debut earlier than Trevor, at least.
That's true, and he's like the host, isn't he? So
he's supposed to be.
You can't win them all.
That's true. But besides talking about Trevor and bringing Andrew in, let's talk about something more relevant, and that's Northwest and their basketball. It's going really good for both sides, even though the women's are still building up towards seasons to come. Let's talk a little bit about the women's game first before we get into the men's game. The women's did lose to UCM 71-53. Some bright sides, though. Mallory McConkey had 13 points, 5 rebounds. Jalen Haggard also had 13 points with 3 assists and 2 rebounds. It's not a game that Northwest didn't want to lose, but it happened. They played a lot better in their first game when it was at home, thinking that there was going to be another one. It's just a little bit one-sided this time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of seems to have been the case for them almost all season. They had a stretch there in like December and January where they won 3 games in a row, I think, and they were looking like they were turning a corner. But I think they've dropped 8 in a row now after that loss to Central, and it's just the season's kind of they're just limping their way towards the finish line at this point.
For me, with this team, we've talked about all year since the season started that this was for sure going to be a rebuilding year. You've got a new head coach. You're bringing in a new culture. The concern for me right now is it's not different problems costing them games every game. It's the same issue every game. There's a 4 to 5 minute stretch that is costing them game after game after game where they either struggle to score or struggle to stop teams. And you look at a lot of their games this year, and if you take away that 4 minute stretch, they're either really close to winning a game or they would end up winning the game. I mean, you look at the first game against UCM a week ago, you take away the first 5 minutes of that game, Northwest gets the upset.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to have to figure out, and they've got to be able to – that's what they need to focus on is – we very rarely see any team put together 40 straight minutes of great basketball. You can see teams do it for 35, 36. The thing that they need to work on is when that 4 minutes comes, they've got to be able to keep the damage from being where it's at right now, where it ends up being a 17-4 run, a 19-4 run for whoever they're playing, and then they got to crawl their way back.
Yeah, it's been like that all year. And Austin, Coach Austin Meyer talked about that after their loss to Southwest Baptist last week at home when they gave up, I think, 30 points in the third quarter. Southwest shot 8 from 10 for 3 in that quarter alone, which was, you know, it's hard for any team to come back from a quarter like that, especially it's kind of a disheartening loss for them last week because Southwest was the lowest placed team in the conference at the time. So. But, yeah, Meyer just talked about how it's always been it seems like every game or most games at least it's just one quarter that really does them in. And like you said, it's even just 4 to 5 minutes in that quarter that just it takes them out of it.
And that's just as what I was saying. My concern with that is it's not – you know, when you're rebuilding, you expect there to be this problem. You get it fixed, and then something else arises. It's the same thing each game where it's just this 4 minute stretch where you don't know exactly what it is, where it's just – I mean, last night in their game, they went scoreless for something along the line 6-7 minutes. They went almost 10 minutes without a field goal. The only points they scored were from the free throw line, only 17 at halftime. And it was just that 5-6 minutes right there where they were playing right with UCM, right where they left off after the back end of 3 quarters with UCM last Wednesday, playing tough with one of the better teams in the MIAA, have that bad quarter or that bad stretch, and then you're chasing the rest of the game.
As now Northwest women's is 7-18 regular season. They are 3-13 in MIAA play. Now let's move on to we have the men's. They also played last night as well, and they defeated UCM with a score of 64-49. It wasn't a very good offensive side for a few guys we usually see do well, like Joey Wittes. He was 3 for 10 from the field goal, 3 for 9 on 3-point attempts, but they did win 64-49, and this is their 6th consecutive MIAA title.
Yeah, it's kind of insane to think about how impressive that is. They're the first team to ever win 6 consecutive MIAA titles, and the basketball portion of MIAA dates back to 1925, I think. So that's a year that predates, the Great Depression and the integration of public schools. So pretty insane just to think about how competitive the conference has been every year. I mean, I think only one other team had won it 5 times in a row. But now for them to do this, especially with the team they're fielding this year after they graduated Justin Pitts, they graduated Brett Doherty, they graduated Xavier Kurth, who's now a graduate assistant, and Chrissy Bowendow. And here they are starting 2 freshmen in their lineup. They're starting Ryan Welty, who didn't see regular time last year, and Ryan Hawkins, who even more so didn't see regular time. And now here they are, 26-0 now, and the best team in the conference.
As it's very impressive to see some of these few guys on this team that's getting 40 minutes a game, as in Joey Wittes and Ryan Welty. They're just like the Iron Men out there for the Bearcats, and they have really solidified the reason for them being 26-0 and 16-0 in MIAA play.
Like you said last night, if you look at the actual game, it wasn't any. They controlled the entire game. UCM was never really there to mess with Northwest. Northwest kind of just cruised to their 6th straight MIAA title, and the score wasn't up there because just the way UCM plays, it slows the game down. So Northwest still shot about 50% from the field. They were still the same offensive team they were. Their defense is great, but that 6th MIAA title in a row, that's what is impressive. But the scary thing for the rest of the country is, yes, they celebrated that last night, but these players, and I was able to listen in on all of their interviews with BRN last night as they got some of the players to talk about it. It was cool. It was just kind of a novelty for them. They've got, obviously, as most teams would, but they're extremely focused on that last game of the season and what could end up being a championship. They want that, and they're ready to put in the work to go get it.
And with them winning the MIAA title here, and the 21st of February is when it happened, there's still more basketball left for their schedule and also MIAA play. It's something that Northwest can just keep looking on forward to saying, hey, we got this. Now we just got to move on to the next by finishing out the season, then going into the actual tournament and performing well when that does happen.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 3 games left until the MIAA tournament, and then they'll play that and hope they're the number 1 seed in the region, and then they'll host that if they are. But they could go 1-2 realistically over their last 3 games and still be the best team in the region. Every other team in Division II in the country right now has at least 2 losses rather. And then Washburn, I believe, is the 2nd team in the conference right now, and they have 3 losses. So Northwest is in great shape, but I'm sure they aren't going with the attitude that we can lose these games. They're going with the attitude that we're going to win these games, and I'd say they're probably going to take that same attitude to every single game for the rest of the season.
As with the Northwest's team, led by a couple, it's not led by, everybody's leading this team at some point in some aspect throughout a game, but with 2 freshmen such as Trevor Hudgens and Diego Bernard, these are 2 guys that could possibly win rookie of the year pretty much of Division II basketball. That's good to have on this Northwest team is 2 guys, and I was talking to a few guys before we started saying that should drive them to play even better, even more coming down towards the end part of the season, because you got 2 of these guys battle it out to see who's going to actually be the best rookie of the year, even though it probably won't co-share it with anybody, but still I think it's good to have these 2 freshmen step up the way they've been doing this entire season. I
think Trevor's got the slight edge right now just due to the fact that Diego was the 6th man for I think the first 12 games of the season, but Trevor is leading all of NCAA Division II basketball right now in points per game among freshmen. I think he's at 18-point-something points per game. I've got the stats in front of me, but they're outdated now after last night. But yeah, I mean, he's just been so good, and he's I think in the top 5 in assists per game for freshmen in the country. And easily, to me, the runaway candidate for MIAA Freshman of the Year, and certainly up there in the National Rookie of the Year, if that's what you want to call it.
It's their first season. Yeah. I call it rookie because why not?
Fair enough.
And taking a look at the Hudgens stats last night, he was 7 for 11 from the field, 3 for 5 from three-point line. He did miss a free throw, as we'll get to that right now, as he was trying to get to the part where he holds the record for the most free throw attempts and made through Division II. He did pass Northwest Kelvin Parker's mark at 35, and so he has 36 now, but he did not. He did tie for the MIAA record with UCM's Reggie Sword of 36 in a row, and on that 37th attempt, he missed it, but it's still a good sign or a good way to represent yourself and putting yourself in a record book.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I tried to look it up last night and see, how many, what's the record for how many free throws LeBron James has made in a row, and I couldn't find it anywhere, but I would bet that he's never made 36 free throws in a row. People think oh, that's not that hard, it's free throws. That's incredibly hard, and there's a reason why he just set the MIAA record or tied the MIAA record, and doing so was one away from setting that. I don't think I could make 5 in a row if you gave me 100 chances, but I'm not Trevor Hudgens, so.
That's true. I'm pretty much the same way when it comes to that. As Northwest has won their last 13 straight road games, so that's another thing. They are being the road dogs. They're being able to beat teams by a good margin as well. If they keep on with this road dog mentality and keep things up, the sky's the limit for Northwest right now.
It is, and especially Andrew, you just briefly talked about the Central Region, and I want to get back to that real quick. Northwest Missouri State, the last time they updated, number 1 in the region, 4 MIAA teams within the region, but the buffer they have within that region is so great right now. You briefly mentioned that they could basically lose out right now and still have an opportunity to sit atop of that region. You've got Washburn at 2, Northern State at 3, St. Cloud State 4, then Missouri Southern at 5, and Lincoln is the other MIAA team at 8. And just the way everything looks right now, Northwest has the opportunity to really focus on things they can get better at without being worried about dropping a game. They can drop a game right now and it will do nothing. So it allows them to relax to the sense of being able to work on things to get better. But the thing is, with this team, they're still going to have so much talent that they don't want to drop a game. You can hear they want to win as many games as possible, but there is that buffer they have to still host the regional.
And I think what you mentioned, those standings there, shows not only it just shows how deep the region is. Lincoln, probably the team that has twice now come closest to beating Northwest, and they're the 8th seed in the region. Washburn's the Northwest last game of the season on the road in Topeka. And if Northwest, for whatever reason, lost their next 2, lost to Saturday and lost Tuesday, as long as they would beat Washburn next Thursday, I still think that they would be the number 1 seed in the region. But with Lincoln being the 8th seed, because only the top 8 seeds make the tournament, as you guys know. But if they're the 8th seed, I mean, that just shows you how good this region is.
And it's something that's for a mindset. If you are Northwest, is okay, it'd be fun to win all these games towards the end of the season, but if we end up having a hiccup here and there and actually lose one, I don't see it happening. But if that does actually happen, it's something that they can fall back on and say, hey, we got it out of the way, let's not do it again. Or even if they do it twice, it's something that could be like, okay, we did this twice, let's not do this again, and let's win out the rest of the season.
If you're Northwest, do it in the next 3.
Yes.
Or do it during the MIAA tournament. That's the time to obviously lose your game. If you're going to drop one, don't wait till the NCAA tournament to do so.
And for the MIAA tournament so far, teams that are in it already is Northwest, Washburn, Missouri Southern, and Fort Hays State. There's 4 teams that are outside the bubble right now looking in. That's Lincoln, Pitt State, Lindenwood, and Central Missouri. As Central Missouri is also tied with as I see in here, overall-wise, conference-wise, was Northeastern State, Southwest Baptist, Missouri Western, and Emporia State. They're all sitting at 6 and 10, so that's the 8th spot right now is a big, huge dogfight for that spot. But Northwest still sits on top of number 1, and I mean they're going to. They're number 1. They're 26-0, 16-0 in conference, as Northwest next meeting will be against Southwest Baptist here on Saturday, as their tip-off for that game is scheduled for 3 o'clock or whenever the game ends for the women's. Before that, let's move things over now to some baseball action, as already starting today, Northwest is down at Northeastern State. They're starting a 3-game series with them. Northeastern State, they have a game also on Saturday and on Sunday, so it's nice to see them not have any doubleheader action. Coach Lowe is very excited about this game happening, so they can get the Northeastern State traveling that all the way, get that out of the way first, so they don't have to travel back down there again. But it's starting off the MIAA action, conference action, and so Northwest is trying to look to improve on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, they've kind of been on this southern tour lately. I mean, that's all you can do when you look outside Maryville right now and everything's covered in snow. But I think so far this season, and I'll admit that my knowledge on this team is limited right now. It's pretty early in the season, and I think their knowledge on themselves is at least limited in some capacity. But their offense has been there, but it's just their pitching has not been able to get it done at times. I think they've had some leads in some of these early games that they've just dropped late, and you can't do that when you're trying to win games. But they're still figuring themselves out right now. They graduated a ton of players last year. They have a number of transfers from Nebraska Kearney who
actually solidified themselves as helping this team so far in the season.
So far, yeah. I think Connor Quick, the first baseman, has been kind of an offensive stud so far. He won MIAA Hitter of the Week 2 weeks ago or last week, and he's a transfer from Kearney who dissolved their baseball team. And just so far, it's been young pitching that's been their fault, but I think they'll figure that out as they go along. They have to figure out how their pieces fit together, and I mean it's baseball, so I mean that's what you do early is just figure it all out.
Other things happening around, it's actually happening on campus today and throughout the weekend, is a track at the the indoor championship is this weekend, and I know you've covered a little bit of the track as well. Anything that's going to stand out the most, what people should look forward to during this time?
Well, I talked to Coach Masters and Coach Gibson, and their goal they're saying is try to get the men's and women's team to finish in the top 5, which I tried to look back and see what the last time that was done, and he said that Masters said it had never really been done here. And his quote was that it's hard to slay a dragon in its own backyard, so they're trying to win here at home and at least compete here at home. I think Omar Austin is going to be one of the biggest people to watch. He competes in the men's 4x400. He's their anchor, and then the 400 by itself, and he's the fastest freshman in the country right now by time in that 400. So he'll be someone to watch if he does what he does. And as Masters put it, if they all just kind of do what they're projected to do, they should be in the top 5 in both, and hopefully they can pick up points here and there, because he thinks that the teams 3 through 7 are probably going to be decided by just a few points.
As I have mad respect for runners and track, because that's something I could never do, and the fact that if you're an anchor, you always have the fastest guy, and it's something that would be very interesting to watch. I may end up going over there tomorrow and watch a few things going on with that, and it'd be a good time. It's like, isn't this their second meet at the indoor facility this year?
I believe it's their third, because they had it's their fourth now, because they had the Mel Churchman Classic, which is kind of a small one, and then Bearcat Invite, Northwest Open, and now hosting the MIAA Championship for the first time ever. So,
as that's going on campus. There's tennis, men's and women's tennis in Red Oak, Iowa, as they will be taking on Maryville of St. Louis. So that's kind of interesting. If you look at the schedule, you see us playing Maryville. We are Maryville. We're in Maryville. But that is happening in Red Oak. The softball has been canceled for this weekend series, as you really can't play baseball in Emporia, Kansas around this time of the year, because it's obviously snow. As next week we're going to see a possible case of baseball may be canceled or maybe moved at some other time here on the campus, just in case the snow does not melt in time. But then again, softball is next week in Joplin, but we'll get more into that next week. Other than that, that's pretty much that does it here for some campus action, some athletics. But there's a lot of good stuff happening, a lot of things to be look proud upon if you're a Bearcat, and there's obviously you can't miss any of this action because there's a lot going on.
You should probably talk about the game Tuesday. It'll be their last home game, the men's and women's basketball, because you won't have another show before then. But Tuesday at home, that'll be their last regular season home game of the season.
Yep, as they take on Missouri Western, so it's a rivalry match. As we'll have broadcasts of that, of course, here on KZLX. As I'm pretty sure on the call for the women's game, it is myself and it is Nolan Brooks, and for the women's, it is their first broadcast this semester is Noah Cooper and Perry Randall. So that will be the last home game for Northwest, as it is against our in-state rival, and I mean all this stuff almost is in-state, but with Missouri Western. So that's be a fun game and be a great game for people to go watch.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add about this our Northwest campus? Except for baseball is about to come back here on the campus, and hopefully it's next week.
I just wish
were they scheduled for their first home game March 1st?
Yes.
That's already been moved to Edmond, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Right now, their first home game has been pushed back to March 5th.
So that is perfect timing that you said that.
I just wish the snow would melt. I'm just sick of it personally.
Well, if we could just get like a canopy over Northwest Missouri of like where snow just like runs off and doesn't touch us at all, I think that'd be nice. But that'd be very expensive.
Yeah, that would be expensive, perhaps unfeasible, but I'm all for it.
I'm all for it.
We got it in the budget somewhere, right?
I mean, we can just drill it out or something like that if anything goes. But Andrew, thank you for coming on, talking your first time this semester talking about Northwest athletics. Anything you're looking forward to this weekend other than Northwest athletics that you're going to be watching or something like that?
I'm going to be at the track meet, I think, both days, but if I have any time, I think they're golfing this weekend, right? Is Tiger Woods golfing this weekend?
He might be.
If so, I'll try to catch some of that, but maybe some Netflix. I have no idea.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for coming on. Listening to the Weekend Sports Kickoff right here on streaming live on KNWT's Channel 8's Facebook page, and we're also on KZLX LP Maryville.